Harwich Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. Once again, this meeting is both online and in person. If you do want to participate online, then the remote login information is available on our website. So with that being said, the first item on our agenda is a public hearing for conservation restrictions for four properties: 1550 Factory Road, 0 Pleasant Lake Avenue, 27 Soundview Road, and 595 Queen Anne Road. Do we have a proponent here tonight, Amy?
Mike Locke is here from the Harwich Conservation Trust, unless you want, would you like to speak to this? Sorry.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, members of the Conservation Commission, for fitting us into your busy agenda. Michael Locke, Executive Director of the nonprofit Harwich Conservation Trust. Also here this evening remotely is Mark Robinson, Executive Director of the Compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trust. It's a nonprofit regional land trust service center that provides assistance to local land trusts across the Cape and southeastern Massachusetts, including Harwich Conservation Trust, and including with elements of conservation, such as conservation restrictions, 4 of which you have in front of you that are summarized in the cover letter dated May 6th. The chair just reviewed the street addresses of the 4 conservation restrictions. The conservation values are enumerated in each of the conservation restrictions. We, Harwich Conservation Trust, have been before you in the past in this process. So as a refresher to everyone, conservation restriction is essentially a legal instrument that it extinguishes some or all of development potential on some or all of a particular property. In this case, we're required to place a conservation restriction on 1550 Factory Road and 0 Pleasant Lake Ave as part of a state grant approval process. Recall that at those 2 property addresses, they're the subject of land-saving capital campaigns led by Harwich Conservation Trust, supported by so many folks across the community to preserve the best environmental values at each of those properties. The second 2 are private properties, and each of those landowners are exercising their private property rights to preserve their vision of their lands. The 27 Soundview Road property in South Harwich, the owner actually also has a home next door and wants to preserve the natural elements of this adjacent property at 27 Soundview Road. And the owners at 595 Queen Anne Road also have a home on the property and also want to preserve the environmental values on the wooded remainder of their land, and they're using a conservation restriction to do so. So again, a flexible tool, and one that can result in tax advantages to the landowners, or in the case of the first 2 conservation restrictions mentioned, again, a state requirement in order to qualify Harwich Conservation Trust for state grants that are helping with the preservation of each of those properties. I think I'm going to leave it there at a summary level for each of the 4 conservation restrictions to respect your time, and ask any questions that Mark and I could answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Amy, do you have any comments?
So what their request is that you vote to support this letter that was in your Dropbox and that you have in front of you tonight. It's a letter to the Board of Selectmen saying that you support the putting of a conservation restriction on these 4 properties. The Conservation Commission would not be holding the restrictions, other entities would be, but your letter of support would really help in helping to have the board make its decision to support these conservation restrictions. So that's what they're asking of you tonight.
Thank you. Hear any comments from the commissioners, starting with Wayne?
No.
Alan?
No comment.
Jim?
Just one quick question. Mike, who is going to be the holder of the conservation restrictions?
So to review the 4 that are enumerated on the cover letter of May 6th, so we'll start in turn with the conservation restriction on the approximately 3.3 acre property at 1550 Factory Road. That conservation restriction will actually be held by Arenda Wildlife Land Trust, who Mark is working with in this conservation restriction approval process. For the second conservation restriction at 0 Pleasant Lake Ave, the conservation restriction holder will also be Arenda Wildlife Land Trust. The third conservation restriction at 27 Soundview Road in South Harwich, Arenda Wildlife Land Trust. And then the fourth, at 595 Queen Anne Road, the holder of the conservation restriction will actually be the Compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trust, which Mark represents.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. John?
No questions?
Brett?
Same here.
Mark?
No questions.
Okay, good. Yeah, the only question I have, is there anything in the restrictions about permitted activities, Mike? Well, we've talked about this in the past with permitting, certain fishing, that sort of thing, hiking on the land, anything like that?
Yes, so in the structure of each of the conservation restrictions, there's a list of permitted uses. And so for instance, as an example, the conservation restriction on the 0 Pleasant Lake Avenue property, that's on an acre of a larger 30-acre assemblage. That is the land opposite Cape Regional Tech High School. And that is, as it is today, will remain, even with the conservation restriction in place, open to the public, walking trails there. When we're talking about, let's say, conservation restriction number 4, that's a little different if I'm using the example of public access. That's actually on a private property. They don't have to grant public access. Some owners of land that are adjacent to larger tracts with existing walking trails that might cross their property could consider granting public access, not a requirement. In this case, it's such a small property. There's no adjacent land with existing trails. There isn't public access. Predominantly, the goal with each of the conservation restrictions is to preserve the environmental values. You can see some of them are within Zone 2 of contribution to public water supply. You've got contiguity to existing conservation lands surrounding these properties, and then you've got wildlife habitat values. In addition to the permitted uses, there is a requirement by the holder of the conservation restriction, again for 3 of these Arenda Wildlife Land Trust, and the 4th by the Compact, to annually monitor the land subject to the conservation restriction, just to make sure that we, Harwich Conservation Trust, are upholding the terms of the conservation restriction, which is essentially to protect the conservation values of the land. That monitoring visit takes place once a year. Mark, did you want to add anything to Mr. Crabtree's question, to answer his question?
No, I think the terms of the restrictions are all very standard, using the model conservation restriction promoted by the state government. So it's in line with the standard clauses that we typically see in these restrictions.
Okay. All right, good. Fine, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience? All right, hearing none, I think we're ready for a motion on this.
I'll move to approve the letter, the draft letter that's in front of us, supporting the conservation restrictions for 4 properties enumerated. 1550 Factory Road, 0 Pleasant Lake Ave, 27 Soundview Road, and 595 Queen Anne Road.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all very much for your time, and your partnership in this effort. Appreciate it.
Thank you. How
This is
quickly
for
do you
you.
need this letter?
Oh, it's done.
It's
Oh, it's done.
just like that. Wow. Thank you.
I had an option to have it done or to have, or not. If you
We
didn't
need to
vote it, I wouldn't hand it to
Do we
him.
need to sign it, Amy?
No, it's just my signature on your behalf for this one because you're not holding anything. You're just recommending, so.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is a number of requests for a change in plan for Brora Drive. The first one is at 6 Brora Drive. Request to change the approved plan by removing a proposed addition and instead partially enclosing an existing covered porch. Good evening.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I may, real quick, would it be easier if you announced all three of them? The other change in plan for 6 Brewer, and then the amended order for 2, since they're all kind of tied together, so we can talk about them together?
Sure, and then I'll go in that same order.
Okay.
It's confusing, no doubt
Yeah.
about it.
All right.
We
Well, the
open them
second,
all up.
the second item is also 6 Barora Drive, and this is a request to change the previously approved off-site mitigation plan to account for some work being proposed in an amendment request for 2 Barora Drive. And 2 Barora Drive is a single-family home and accessory garage, landscaping, and invasive species removal. The amendment in this case is to add a plunge pool, a pool patio, and to relocate a driveway. So with that, you're ready, you're up.
Here we go. So there was two notice of intents and one request for determination that were filed for these 2 properties. The number 6 and number 2 were both owned by James Sullivan. He ended up selling number 2 to his daughter and son-in-law last summer after the original approval went through for that. So to go in the order, and the easiest one was number 6 Broder Drive, which is the existing house. We were before you in December with that was a request for determination of applicability for an addition. And that, I guess that was November that we went before you. That was a simple 9x17 addition off the west side of the house. That ended up being, the idea was they're increasing the size of a bedroom in the house to create an office area so one of them can do work out of the house. That became too big of a project because of where the electric was, the utilities, and the structural and the rest of it. It became bigger than they wanted to take on, so they wanted not to do that addition, withdraw that addition, and instead enclose a section of what's now an existing covered porch on the front of the house. So all they wanted to do was remove the existing approved addition and then enclose. The new project is a plan dated 5/11/22, which is just enclosing 64 square feet of existing slab and with a roof, so existing porch area. So that was, so for that was just a change of plan to get rid of one addition and put the other one on, and then the accompanying mitigation, because it's already a slab with a roof, our interpretation is it wouldn't require the mitigation that was required for the lateral expansion before. So that's one section. I guess it gets a little confusing in whether that gets voted on.
Yeah, so I would say let's vote on this one, and, yeah, we should vote on them separately, and this one is a little bit more standalone than the other 2 are.
Yeah, this one makes, so all we're requesting is, in this change of plan, is removing the lateral addition and the approval of the proposed habitable, 64 square feet enclosing that porch into what would become the office nook off the bedroom.
Amy, you have comments on this one?
No, I don't. Looks pretty simple.
Yeah, let me see if Amy has
Oh, I
any.
thought you said.
That's all right.
So this porch is approximate between 90 and 100 feet really from the top of coastal banks. So yes, it's enclosing and making habitable space out of a porch, but it's really on the perimeter of the buffer zone, and I don't see the need for mitigation for that.
Okay. Let me ask Stan, do you have any questions?
No.
No. No. Wayne?
No.
Al?
No comment.
Good.
Okay, I do, just because I'm not sure I entirely followed what you were describing. I get the addition and that, but you talked about dropping another addition somewhere, which, that's the part that's unclear to me.
No, removing that, removing the proposed, withdrawing the addition that was approved in November,
Which is not shown on this,
not on the new plan, it's not shown on that. So we just want approval for this new plan.
okay, so we're not approving or taking any action about the old thing. You're just,
The other addition that they're not doing was pretty much immediately adjacent to this enclosed porch, but on the other on the corner of the house.
So so as part of this, though, I don't know if it can be written up, withdraw the addition that was approved in November 19th.
This would be the new plan of record, which does not have that addition on.
So it's just changing one plan to the other. The addition went from being a lateral addition to being enclosing of an already, and this is the easiest one.
Brad?
Nope.
Mark?
Nope.
The only question I have, so withdrawing the previously approved addition, is that in writing? I mean, do we have to formalize that somehow?
No, you're just gonna make this new plan that's in front of you tonight, the new plan of record, and that takes care of that.
Okay,
This is gonna be what they built.
okay. Good. Any questions, comments from the audience on this one? With that, can we have a motion on? Yes,
Sure.
Jim.
I'll move that we approve the change in plan for 6 Bora Drive, map 15, parcel U2-2, determination 2021-33.
Can we have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Do you want to do two next, Dan?
These next two are really connected.
I meant two Brora versus 6 Brora.
True Brora, six, yeah.
Is the
2 and-
mitigation for the one that's, the work taking place on 2, right?
Right,
Yeah.
so, let's see, okay. So, yeah, if we go to number 6, number 2 Brora. There was the original approved plan was July 7th, 2021. Now, the proposal, the new plan has a revised garage location, which is outside of, it's closer to Mill Road, it's outside of any wetland resource or accompanying setback. Part of the driveway that leaves that garage does cross the floodplain connecting to the main driveway. That would be in the south side of the plan dated 5/12/22. So that's one part of it is approval for that driveway section. The second is a plunge pool, 7 by 13 plunge pool, which the owners originally, they applied for the building permit for this plunge pool to be where, outside of conservation, and where that exists, right in the middle of what says proposed patio. But the building department determined that a plunge pool, even a 7 by 13 plunge pool, needed to meet zoning setbacks from this paper road, so which means it would need to be 25 feet from the road. So the building permit was denied. So this plunge pool, as shown, was option number 2, required by the building department, and putting it still in a decent area for the owners, so it isn't out on the driveway side of the house. And not within, it needs to be 20 feet from the septic system also. So the location of the existing plunge pool is within the approved work limit of the original approval. So then the new disturbance would be the, just making room around that plunge pool to build it and to reasonably keep the vegetation from growing into the plunge pool area. So it's right up adjacent to the house. I think everybody can see where that's shown. Keeps it 25 feet from this big circular cul-de-sac road layout. So I had comped the new area of, which would be the work limit silt fence between the old work limit and the new work limit, and that had come up with 150 square feet. Times 2 equals 300 square feet required. So then, the nice thing about these two properties, even though it made filing and issuing the orders confusing, was that in this case, there was the ability to remove or to do actual mitigation in an area that was right on the, right next to the BVW. So that's Jim's land on number 6. So the mitigation for this proposed pool would be the change of plan. Now, that all the mitigation, or nearly all the mitigation for this number 2 was done through an NOI on number 6. In that plan, we would need to, that's where the third change of plan on number 6 comes into play, is to add mitigation to make up for this. And what we're proposing is to maintain the mitigation. I guess it doesn't really matter, but it's the same mitigation that was previously approved for the addition that we no longer need. So it was this 155 square feet along, down right by the edge of BVW within the coastal bank area. And Jim was taking out hardscape and taking out lawn and doing this mitigation. So then so we were looking for 50-50, as in 50% was going to be that already approved mitigation, which was 155 square feet. And then the owners are also removing the invasive species from their property, which was estimated about 5,000 square feet. So we're looking for that as also counting. So matching 1 for 1, removing lawn for the area that was, that he's looking to increase the work limit. But the requirement's 2 to 1, but we do have this 5,000 square feet of invasive species removal, which does certainly benefit the native environment, which we're hoping that could be used as basically that other 155 square feet of mitigation. We had originally proposed that because originally, back when we were filing, earlier filings had required mitigation for floodplain work. whereas by the time this was approved, there was not that requirement. So we kind of had this 5,000 square feet that was never, that wasn't being really one-for-one mitigated for anything. So hopefully, number 6 can maintain what has already been approved, the native plants increase, and then the other half of it could be mitigated by this invasive species removal that they're looking at doing. I'll end with that.
Nice job. Amy, do you have
Thanks.
some comments on this?
No. That's excess. So the new hardscape is 150 square feet. As Dan said, they're doing approximately that on the neighboring property of 6 Brora for 2 Brora. And they have over mitigated, if you will, on 2 Brora for the work that they had previously been approved for, because they did not need to mitigate for work in the floodplain. That was changed to your regulations. So as presented, I think it meets the requirement for, 1, a change in plan for 6, and a amended order for number 2.
Okay, all right, good, thank you. Stan, do you have questions?
I'm confused about the other 5,000 square feet. That's not mitigation. I mean, it's invasive removal. We don't normally consider that as mitigation. So
Isn't it some,
During the project.
if I understand that right, pardon?
I said it was for this
Oh, okay,
project,
okay.
for this particular.
So
project.
anyway, so you're saying really the 5,000 is covering the 145? Is that
yeah,
what it
where
is?
it's it's so much more.
So
I
you
know
really
generally
don't-
isn't looked at as one-to-one, but if it could be looked at as almost whatever those numbers are, 10-to-1.
So the
All
rest of it is excess mitigation is what you're telling me?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was trying to, okay, thank you.
Wayne?
No, I don't have anything.
Al? Jim?
Okay, I guess I'm just a little bit confused about how this all sort of fits together. And my first question is, this is under a request for an amended order of conditions. With the plunge pool, are we really just amending the order of conditions, or are we approving the new plan? That includes the plunge pool.
That is true.
Both, I think. I think with an amended order, you generally would be supplied with a new plan that would become the plan of record.
Okay, so is that acceptable, Amy, that
Yes. that-
just by changing the order of conditions,
Yep.
we're also approving the new plan?
So with the change in the order of conditions, the plan date and changes.
Oh, okay, that's fine. And then second, if I am understanding this correctly, and I may be a little bit confused, is that at least some of the mitigation for 2 Bora Road is on 6 Bora Road?
Correct. They were under the same ownership originally, and they're still same family. Well,
But different
Different
legal
owner.
ownership, so the fact that they're the same family is not really a legal distinction. They're under separate ownership.
separate ownership, but in a case where you have an undisturbed property, the way mitigation can work sometimes is there's no way to mitigate on that property itself, because there's no lawn or anything to get rid of. So when you're doing something like this, I believe this is an ideal situation where you can mitigate you can meet your regulations by, in this case, removing lawn that's right up against the wetland resource. So I believe this is a case for where you're building a new house and you can't mitigate on the lot itself. I think this is an ideal situation. You can mitigate next door.
Okay, then my question really is for Amy. Do our regulations state that you can mitigate on adjacent
Yep,
property?
off-site mitigation is what it's called. And
Okay.
that both the owners are in agreement, they have respective permits for the work.
Okay, those are my only questions.
Thank you, John. Beth?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, it's just a comment. This all seems pretty positive to me. In particular, I remember from visiting Tubrora that the invasives were totally out of control back there. So eliminating those things, I think it's a good deal.
Right.
There are some good natives still in there. There's a lot of invasives, but if they have existing, conditions about how to remove them and what to do and everything. So, I mean, I'll happily meet with them on site, but, the natives should do much better. I don't foresee the need for new planting.
Brett?
Just a comment on the status. Has the mitigation started along the harbor? That section near the dock, has that begun? Not yet? Okay,
Not that I see.
thanks.
Mark?
No comments.
The only question I have is on this area where you're going to be removing the invasives, Dan. What is on the other side of the boundary lines from this particular area? First question I have.
The one straight to the west, I believe, is cleared yard. Then, I think in both cases, and then to the north, which isn't shown on this plan, is also cleared yard. Yeah, there's a fence, post and rail fence across the line. So I think the neighbor on the north and the west have pretty much cleared to the lot lines. The west maybe not as much, but I believe it is.
How about Tubrora?
Yeah,
It looks like it's just kind of wooded area leading up to the church parking lot.
Okay.
are there invasives on
The-
that, in that area?
I just got Google Earth up here and you can't really
Yeah.
tell, but it
There
looks like
are.
it's wooded.
There are?
Yeah, I mean, on the abutting property, yeah, it's bittersweet mostly in there.
I mean, obviously,
Like on
invasives don't.
43 Harbor, they do have a lawn, don't they, heading down, or heading north, I should say.
Yeah,
Maybe it fades off.
yep. And above that is the wooded area, so.
I guess where I was going with that is, obviously, the invasives, if they are outside the boundaries of the property, or in the area that they're gonna be removing the invasives from, aren't gonna respect those boundaries, but how do you keep that cleared of invasives?
I guess they would have to keep, this property itself would just have to keep,
We can have a maintenance
keep the project
condition.
going. Hold the invasives at the lot line, I guess, just
That's what
constant,
I mean.
Yeah,
not getting back.
you can condition the,
Has to
removal.
be maintained.
Yeah,
All right, that's what I was hoping you'd say. That's good.
Isn't that already settled with a prior permit?
I'll just make sure, but yeah. That was all in the paperwork.
Okay. I have no other questions other than that. So any comments, questions from the audience on this? All right, hearing none then. We have a motion?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, before I make a motion, I just wanted to question whether or not you think it would be appropriate to combine these two matters into one motion, since they're so interrelated.
They're two different addresses, and one's a request for a change in plan and one's an amendment, so I would suggest that you keep them separately in your motion.
Okay, I think
Okay.
that's reasonable.
Okay, well then, I'll make the motion first on 2 Bora Drive, and I will move that we approve the amended order of conditions for 2 Bora Drive, map 15, parcel V1-3, order of conditions SE 32-2465.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Tubrora passes.
Okay, I will also make the motion that we approve the change in plan for 6 Bora Drive, map 15, parcel U2-2, order of conditions SE 32-2466.
Second?
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes.
All set?
We have Did we combine 6? Did we do
You're
both
all
of the
set.
changes for 6?
You
Yeah,
voted
we
that
already
already.
approved the first one.
Oh. I've heard 2 motions, though. We have 3 items here.
You
Yeah,
did make
she-
a
she
motion
voted.
at first. You don't-
Yeah, before we even got into discussion of these two, we approved the first one.
All right,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is an amended order of conditions for 2 Clausen Lane, map 7, parcel A-850. The order of conditions was SE 32-2434. Do we have a proponent for this?
Good evening. For the record, Sean Riley, Coastal Engineering. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Just to give you a quick run-through of what was approved in the order of conditions before we run through the quick modifications to the landscape improvements. We had an existing house that was raised and replaced. We're deep into construction now. The house and the patio were pulled back. We had a significant amount of reduction within the 0 to 50 by pulling it back, with some increase in coverage in the 50 to 100, with a mitigation requirement for the work that we were doing of 2,352 square feet of mitigation. That was provided. There's no modifications to the mitigation proposed. Getting into construction, working with the builder, architect, and landscape designer. You should have this colored, everybody see this? Colored modifications to the landscape improvements. Starting at the front door, there were some stepping stones that the landscape designer would like to add that would be within the lawn area, within the 50 to 100. A short retaining wall. The property next door has a steep little berm that runs down onto the property, working with the neighbor. And the neighbor also provided a proponent letter for this project in favor of it. To add this short 24-inch retaining wall to hold that grade back, essentially that's spilling over from the neighbor's property. So there would be a short retaining wall added within the 50 to 100 on the eastern side of the property. To the west side of the house, there's a small landing, some minor reconfiguration on the interior that required a new doorway and a landing to the west side of the house. 4 AC condenser units were added along the property line within the 50 to 100 foot buffer. The benefits of this are the patio that was previously approved is now to be shrunk down, resulting in a net reduction overall within the 0 to 50. There are minor changes to the stair that came out the backside onto the back porch and back patio. So it made more sense to shift the stair from right along the inside to what we're showing now along the outside. This is still much further back than the previous house that was only 13.5 feet from the coastal bank. Now we're back 29.5 feet from that top of coastal bank line, even with the addition of this step. To run you through the numbers. So this is where, why don't we just run through the numbers real quick. So we've got areas in green that are reduced are 146 square feet. And the stuff that's added in the 50 to 100 adds 226 square feet. So we do have an 80 square foot increase in coverage. The mitigation that was provided before provided an extra couple hundred square feet within that mitigation. So we still meet that 2 to 1 criteria for mitigating within the 50 to 100, and also with an added reduction of the coverage that's proposed with the removal of this section of patio within the 0 to 50. Before we get into any questions, I had a discussion with the homeowner who had late discussions today with the builder as far as the location of these 4 AC condenser units. And it seemed to both of them that it would make more sense to have them line up right along the edge of the building than get into the vegetation to try to put them within this area over adjacent to the property line. What that does is it puts 18 square feet for the 3x3, the two 3x3 pads back into the 0 to 50. But even doing so still results in a net reduction of 71 square feet within the 0 to 50 foot buffer overall, further reducing that coverage within the 0 to 50. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Amy, do you have comments?
Yeah, so Sean, when we were on the site today, Rick Roy Construction was there, and the contractor who was there seemed to think that instead of having the line of the AC units like you showed against the house, that he was gonna try to condense them into like one larger pad somehow and still keep it out of the 50. I don't really I mean, if we can keep it out of the 50, that's great. If not, you're still showing a net reduction in the 0 to 50 from your original, what you originally had on the site, so I don't have a huge issue, but you may just want to clarify between the homeowner and the contractor, because he definitely mentioned to us of consolidating those little pads into like one bigger pad when we were there.
Yeah, understood. And that's shown in this photograph here. And actually the homeowner, Jonathan Vanek, is on the call right now.
Okay.
And I just had a discussion with him. While the 4x4 would be acceptable, it's not great. We're talking about an area that would be lawn anyway, and as you stated, it still results with all these changes a further net reduction of 71 square feet within the 0 to 50. So it would make more sense to kind of tuck them up against the house rather than have them project out into this kind of a square area that you would be looking out down at these condenser units. So the preference of the homeowner would be to line them up right along the side of the building, which makes sense to me, and get them out of your walkway around the house.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page, and it sounds like you are. So, as Sean stated, and I misspoke today on site, I'm really sorry. There is a net decrease in the 0 to 50, which I said that there's a net decrease overall, but you're correct. There's a slight net increase in the total project, and that's as a result of the hardscape changes in the 50 to 100 foot buffer of about 80 square feet. As Sean has stated, they originally got permitted to do more mitigation by a couple hundred square feet than was necessary to meet their mitigation requirements, so they are covered if you look just at the numbers. So I would, if you have more questions about the mitigation piece, I would ask Sean, but I would recommend approval of this amendment.
Okay, thank you. Stan, do you have questions? Wayne? No.
No question.
No? John? Brad?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the air conditioning units. There was a lot of discussion when this came before us before on changes in the 0 to 50. And there was a lot of interest in trying to reduce the footprint further. And so, is there any potential to keep those 4 AC units out of the 0 to 50?
There is. So just looking at the photograph, there is the option, I don't know if you can see this, to square the pad off, to keep it out of the 0 to 50. It's not a great configuration. And where we're reducing the coverage with the revisions even further, even by 71 square feet more than what we had previously been approved. I think it would be a beneficial swap, even by adding 18 square feet just along the edge of the foundation.
Okay, well, I think that's the one point is that I would favor not putting new AC units in 0 to 50. Pretty small item, but
Okay. Mark? Comments?
Going once.
The only question I have for you is, again, when we were talking with the builder that was there, and I understand he's not the landscaper, but The area in the front of, or in the back of the house, on the beach side of the house, that's in green right now, is already a poured slab foundation. And he said that was going to be covered over with loam and then grassed. The foundation extends all the way over to the east, to the bump out that's been added to the back of the house, or that's on the back of the house. And right now, that space in between those two areas seems to be a patio. He led us to believe that the grassed area was going to be sloped up over the top of the slab foundation on the west side of that, and then extend all the way over to the bump-out addition. So the patio that's shown on this plan here, he said was going to be grassed in. And I question if he's intending to grass in the green area that you show on your plan, then he's going to have to raise it up over that poured slab foundation. And then you're gonna bump up against this patio, which is also gonna have to be raised up by, I don't know how much, in order to have grass take on the green side there. So something's not really making sense to me in the plan that I'm seeing here.
So you're saying that this area, let me just zoom in a little bit. Oops. Pan over. So he was saying that this area here was going to be lawn as well?
Yes.
That's, John, are you on the phone? John,
Yes, hi. Hi,
introduce-
Sean. Hi, everyone. If you can hear me. No, we're intending to keep the area that Sean was pointing to as an uncovered patio. And then the area in green, we intended to be also an uncovered patio / fire pit. But we decided we'd prefer to have more open space and more green. And if it makes sense, we could remove the concrete if that's necessary.
I don't see how, from an elevation perspective, you're going to be able to keep the concrete there and grass it.
Yeah, I would suggest that
Yeah,
you
I'm
remove-
not sure, Sean. Sorry, the gentleman at site, Sean Evans, is the project manager. Yeah, I'm not sure what he said today, but I would, not being in the construction field, I would tend to agree that the intention is probably to remove the concrete and to grass it over. So the idea was to have greenscape, not hardscape.
Yeah, if it pleases the commission, we could do that.
All
That
right,
again is less, I mean, even if it's underneath its structure, if you will, underneath, so I would recommend that you remove it if you're not gonna use it as a patio.
right, okay. So that would have to be a part of the,
Yeah, part of the amendment, yep,
yeah, all right.
remove the concrete.
Okay, good. Well, with that change, can we have a motion, please, for this?
Sure. I'll move that we approve the amendment to the order of conditions for 2 Quasin Lane, map 7, parcel A50, order of conditions SE 32-2434.
And condition that with the removal of the existing concrete slab.
Correct. And
the
we'll,
area marked in green.
right. We'll also condition that approval with the removal of the concrete slab in the area shown in green, and that will be incorporated in the amended order of conditions.
And let me, John?
I'll second.
Well, I was going to make one other comment too, that the air conditioning units that are shown on the plan here are proposed to be repositioned as well,
Okay, that's fine.
inside of the house.
Yeah, I can amend
Outside
the
of-
motion to also include the relocation of the air conditioning units to the side of the house.
Outside of the 50 or within? Or is there any,
I think we're talking about outside the 50, aren't we?
okay, any discussion about the motion? All right, can we have a second, please?
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Sean, can you, in the next week or so, get me that minor revised plan with the new location for the AC pad, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
All All right, next item on the
Thank you.
agenda. Thank you very much. Is a request for determination of applicability for 2 Harvest Hollow Road for a deck expansion.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm back again. I brought some reinforcements this time, so. So this evening, I'd like to discuss we discussed 2 weeks ago, which is a deck expansion of at our current house. I provided Amy Osowski with some information to distribute to you. So the request for conservation is to expand the existing deck and I'll walk through some of the details, and then build a porous loose stone walkway from the front of the house to the back. Only a piece of that area would actually fall within any sort of a buffer. So page 3 of the package that I distributed is just an outline of the current house, and the deck will actually be, the new piece of the deck will be expanded over what is currently called a planter perennial garden. So I'll be taking over a piece of that. The total area of the deck is, what's on the page here? Is 132 square feet of new deck and 42 square feet of hardscape walkway. So page, I think page 4 of the package, at least I think it's page 4, shows an outline of the new deck and also includes some preliminary locations for sonotube for the foundation. Now, I provided some information on the certified plot plan. There is a cranberry bog water storage. It's a man-made storage area that is 106 feet from the closest portion of the new deck. The deck is about 84 feet from a bank at the end of the property. It's been described as a coastal bank. The information that has been provided to me by John Sennett, my neighbor, is that this was actually a road bank. I can share with you the plot plan, but it was described in the engineering drawing as a coastal bank, but it was actually a road bank. But regardless, we do have 84 feet to that bank. And I think that was all I have there. Yeah, so the 132 square feet, sonotube railing, 3.5 foot wide porous pea stone and slate walkway, and then there's 12 feet of that walkway that is within the 100-foot buffer, so that's 42 square feet. So the total area is 174 square feet. So my request is of the commission is to approve the deck expansion with remediation recommended by the Conservation Commission.
All right. Amy, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, so your required mitigation would then be a 2-to-1 ratio, which is 348 square feet of mitigation required. We don't have like a formal mitigation plan. It's a fairly small area. I'm happy to work with the commission and the client and the applicant. The one thing that I would see as beneficial is, as part of mitigation, is the removal of the post and rail fence that is closest to the top of coastal bank, which by definition, regardless if it's a road bank or not, or how it was artificially created or not, it meets the definition of a coastal bank according to the DEP policy 92-1. So it's the landward extent, landward of a coastal flood area that meets a certain steepness and elevation requirements. So I'm happy to work with you on the mitigation. I think removal of that old post and rail fence, which isn't serving anybody anymore, is a partial way to do that. The applicant has started to remove some of the old, just kind of discarded planting, debris, and pots that had been in the 0 to 50-foot buffer. I think that area could be enhanced. There's some natives back there, but it certainly could be enhanced to create more of a natural buffer. with the addition of native plantings. But we do, we kind of need to see an area on the plan of where that mitigation is
Okay.
gonna be. So we know, okay, here's your 348 square feet of mitigation compared to your 174 square feet of new hardscape. So that's my comment on that part of the project. I don't know if you wanna talk about the picket fence at the same time, or have that a separate
Well,
kind of conversation.
I'd like to make the request to proceed with the deck expansion, you know, with the approval and working with you on the remediation piece, because this is what's holding me up. The fence piece of it was a discussion that was brought up at the last meeting, and I think we can discuss that a little bit further.
It could
if we
be
can
handled
separate the two
separately, as more of an enforcement issue, and that's, I mean, that's the term that we use, but it's two separate, it's up to the commission. It was kind of it came up during review of this project, so.
Okay. Let me ask, I looked quickly at the plans, and have you identified the mitigation areas?
That's what I think Amy was just discussing. We have some areas identified that would be in the back of the property, and then along the side of the property as well.
Okay, but they relate to the deck expansion.
Yes.
Yes.
And the the walkway, I guess would be the hardscape
Yeah, I
walkway.
thought we had seen those in the last hearing that we had on this, that they were identified.
I thought we had kind of talked about it conceptually, like we were just talking about it now, is that it's removal of that post and rail fence and replanting of some of the denuded sparser areas in the 0 to 50, as well as, I think the rest we started talking about with the picket fence, about where that fence would be, and potentially if the fence were to have to, the picket fence were to have to be moved, then you would plant other areas thicker.
Well, in order to approve the deck expansion, though, we need to be able to also approve the mitigation that would take place to offset that, correct?
Yep, so my recommendation, just using kind of round numbers, is that the removal of the old split rail, which is not completely intact, would account for, so it's 348 is you need, have that account for 48 square feet, because again, it's not going in, it's just like one post in the ground every once in a while, and have 300 square feet be of new planting in the 0 to 50.
And where? I mean, I don't see it on any of the plans that we have before us tonight, Amy, is the problem.
I understand that.
So how can we move forward with approving the deck expansion without knowing where and what
That's
mitigation
the
will
purview
take
of the
place?
commission.
Okay, all right, well, let me go to comments then on that. Stan, do you have any comments, questions? Wayne?
No, I do not.
Alan?
I just had a question, I don't know if Mr. Senate can maybe answer this, but how large is that water, the old irrigation pond? How many square feet is it? Roughly,
You have to go to a mic, Mr. Senate, if you,
80 by 100.
so 8,000 square feet roughly?
It's a man-made pond, it's not.
No, I understand, I'm only asking because the state law has 5,000 square feet or more is a wetland, and the town has a bylaw if it's over 3,500 square feet.
3,000.
Oh, I thought it was 3,500, okay. So if it was under 3,000, that's what I'm just trying to say, it would be a moot point here, okay,
It was an old cranberry bog.
okay.
Mr. Senate, if you do speak, you have to speak at the mic, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. John Sennett, owner of the property next door. I'm the one that owns the pond and the property abutting Tad's. And yes, that is my old irrigation pond. And I
Understood.
made it.
Right, no, I understand.
Just so
I
you
just-
know.
I didn't know if it was smaller than the regulations, that's why, then this wouldn't be a problem for this neighbor.
When you're a farmer, you didn't have to worry about those kind of things, so.
Understood, yeah.
Jim, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have the same concern that you have, that I don't see how we can proceed with approving the deck until we see the mitigation areas on the plan.
Okay, I think we're actually to the point right now where we may not expand the deck. Okay, we have an existing deck, so if we do not expand the deck, then we would have no need for the extensive remediation, except for potentially the walkway, which would be 42 square feet, which I think I can actually
If that was the
remediate 42
case, I
square
would
feet.
recommend that the removal of the post and rail fence, which is really right at the top of the coastal bank, technically in some places would count as mitigation for that.
Okay.
Okay, so, excuse me, I'm confused. The application here is to do the deck expansion, and you're now
Well,
saying you're
if-
not going
if-
to do the deck
If
expansion?
there is a concern of the commission of remediation on the property, then we can cancel the deck expansion, and we will just, the deck will stay the way it is, and we'll just, we'll stop the expansion, which would require additional remediation.
So does that mean you're withdrawing the application?
Yes.
No, because you're still asking to do the small amount of walkway.
Okay, yeah, it's true.
So,
So it would
yeah,
just be a
it-
42 square
right,
foot.
I'm making-
Yes,
yeah.
which can be remediated with the post and rail fence.
That's my recommendation, that would be up to them. I think
Yep.
adding a 42 square foot new structure, which is a pervious walkway at the 100-foot buffer zone line, I think removing of a old post and rail fence that's essentially in the 0 to 50, that's, at places close to the 0 is, means more.
Well, the fence is a separate issue, right?
No, it's two fences. So there's a post and rail fence that's dilapidated right at the top of the bank area, and then there's a picket fence that's approximately 35 to 40 feet from
So
the
the next discussion that we're going to be having is only related to the picket fence. The post and rail will be taken out regardless.
That's what I'm recommending as
Yes.
mitigation, because that was put in a very long time ago by the bog owner.
Okay, all right. John?
Okay, so this is getting more confusing rather than less. First point is, I may be recalling incorrectly, but I think when I was there, you already had that deck extension already half built.
No,
Am I
no,
right?
sir, no. No, the deck, the pre-existing deck was, the decking material was removed by the builder because we didn't think we were gonna have an issue with conservation at the time, so we were trying to move forward with it. And then when conservation became involved, we had to stop the project, so.
everything. Okay.
So everything that's there is just the framework from the pre-existing deck.
Okay, so I was confused by the open frame.
That's okay.
So, the other point is, I may be misunderstanding Ernie and Jim, but I didn't hear them objecting to, the mitigation. What I heard is objecting to lack of information about the mitigation. So, and I heard you saying you were gonna withdraw because you thought the commission was
I'm-
objecting to the
Well,
mitigation.
I'm just going
I
to.
wanna make sure we're
Yeah.
clear on that.
I'm sorry, yeah, I think clear, very clear, we're gonna reject I'm canceling the expansion. We're just going to rebuild the existing deck. That's the plan.
Okay, I don't have any further.
Brett?
Nothing further.
Mark?
No remarks.
All right, good. Yeah, I don't, I mean, we're just talking about 42 feet, close to the 100, that's, has to be mitigated for at some point. We're taking out the post and rail fence, correct?
Yeah, that's very close to the
Yeah.
resource, so
Cleaning up the
continue to clean up of the
debris in the
0 to
back
50,
area
yep. Mr., sorry, how do you spell your name?
Domagala, yeah.
Domagala, I'm sorry, Tad.
It's okay.
Tad, has already started doing that.
okay. John, do you have another comment?
I just want to clarify one other point, which is that Mr. Hall was suggesting that if that pond was less than 3,000 square feet, it wouldn't be an issue. Is that the case, Amy, or not? Isn't that a flood zone? Isn't that a waterway connected to the flood zone? So
It is
either way,
still,
it's-
regardless of the pond, it's actually, the pond itself is not the wetland of jurisdiction here. It's that top of coastal bank that, whether or not it's the road or not, it's the seaward or the landward formation of the floodplain. So by definition, the actual edge of wetland is that top of bank, not the pond.
So the size of the pond is immaterial.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, it's my feeling that since they are basically changing what they're proposing to do here, which, again, I have no objection to those changes, but that basically what they should be doing is coming back to us with an amended application at our next meeting.
Any other comments?
I think in this case, they're pretty minor changes. I don't think it's necessary myself.
We're talking 42 square feet. Granted, they're deleting the deck addition, but we can reflect that on
We can condition that properly, I think.
Yep, we
Okay,
could.
I disagree, but that's all right.
Okay.
The other option is that you withdraw the permit altogether and apply administratively, which is if he was not doing the deck, and if you just wanted to do 42 square feet of new patio or new walkway at the 100-foot buffer zone line, and then mitigate by removing the post-rail fence, that's an administrative review that doesn't even come to you.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I think that might be a better approach to this matter.
I think amendments can be made on the floor of this meeting, and I think they want to do less than what they came in with, and I think the decision can be crafted to eliminate the deck expansion, so however you choose to do it.
Well, let me just ask if anyone would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan for, where Two Harvest Hollow, as amended by the applicant at the meeting, to not include any changes to the deck, but include a removal of the post and rail fence at the top of Coastal Bank,
As mitigation for the hardscape changes.
as mitigation for the hardscape changes. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'll second that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries.
Okay, I think the second item was to discuss the fence, which was brought up in the last meeting. And what, at the 519 meeting, the fence was described as within 50 feet of a buffer to the coastal bank. Back in the fall of 2021, I did reach out to Harwich Building Department and with a request of what I would need for a 4-foot cedar picket fence. The building department advised that there was no building permit required for that fence. So at that point, I did proceed with installing the fence, and it's really just to protect our family dog from coyotes that have been observed in the area. It doesn't impede other wildlife in the area because I've seen rabbits and squirrels and even a fox in the area, in the yard. So it's really just the predators that are in the area. The fence is located over 50 feet from the man-made bog that John Sennett had described. It is 34 feet at its closest point to the top of the coastal bank, or the bank. I guess I still refer to it as a road bank, but it is described as a coastal bank. There is a pre-existing post rail fence that we've already discussed before. It is on the property line, so right at the top of the bank. But as noted previously, this is described in the information that I received from John today as a road bank. It was an old road that went right through the back of the property. So it may be a coastal bank or described as that now, but it's on the drawing as a former road bank. But so I think the request that we had, or that I had, was to maintain the current location of the picket fence. I understand the position of the commission, but I did follow what I thought was the proper procedures with the town of Harwich, and unfortunately, the procedures didn't include reaching out to conservation at the time.
You have comments on this, Amy?
Yep, I did have the pleasure of meeting Tad out at the site and going over it with him. I talked about, my basic concern is consistency. The commission has denied and actually went to court with a similar situation with somebody building a fence within the 0 to 50 foot buffer. and also somebody who wanted to build like a 4x4 little tiny storage shed right next to the pond as well. And I understand that this is all altered over the years due to the previous use of the property. But that being said, it's still a wetland by the letter of the law. So I do recommend a bit of a change from between sticking purely by the 50-foot no disturb, which if you do the 50-foot no disturb, because you actually have a coastal bank on this side of the property. This is access, by the way, around. So your 50-foot buffer is right here, on top of coastal bank on your plan. This line right here is his approximate edge of planting bed. My recommendation is to move this fence line up to that, but to be a little bit more forgiving on this side of things, as you have a driveway right there that separates from the wetland itself, and that he move this fence here to in line to where his gate is to his side yard, to still allow access around into the backyard. And then to replant this area, that would be grass, that is grass, with some native plantings, to provide a little bit more of a buffer. So I could sketch that in, but that would be a little bit of a give and take, if you will. I think the more important area to have kind of unimpeded for wildlife, as you said, other wildlife does get in there, but new structure to the top of this bank and to the pond would be to move this fence line to the house side of his landscape bed, which is right at the 50.
Okay. Thank you. Stan, do you have any questions on this or comments?
Amy, on this, on the left there where you were bringing it from the driveway, so
Mhm.
how far was that?
It's about halfway. Oh, it's about
From the
40
fi-
feet. It's about 40.
And why would you not go all the way to the 50? What were you saying that the
If
reason
you go to the
for-
50, you don't have really egress around your house.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask if that Amy's suggestion is okay with the proponent? Is that suitable?
I really would like to have more time, I think, to potentially consider other options to this. I understand the position of the commission, but I'm maintaining right now that this was not a coastal bank, okay? This was a road bank that was created many years ago and goes through the very back of the property, and you can see it clearly on the drawing that we have, okay? I would be happy to make a copy of this and submit it to the commission for review. But I'm not really prepared at this point to say, yes, I'll go move the fence to the location suggested, because at the time that the fence was erected, I did check with the town of Harwich, and I did make sure that the fence was more than 50 feet away from the water, which is a man-made pond.
All right. So do you want to spend some time and work with Amy then and come back to us 2 weeks or something?
I may take a little bit longer, because I may have to look into, if there are legal options available to me, okay? And I don't like to use that path. I would much prefer to been able to say, hey, look,
Doodle us.
we can, well, yeah, just because, just doesn't benefit anybody here, okay? But that would be I think I need more than 2 weeks to investigate this piece of it.
So we could say a month. The commission, if there's no progress in that time, the commission would have the right to act
Okay.
and enforce. We don't like to do that. We're trying to work with you. We're going by a site plan that was prepared by the people you hired, the BSC group, which has a date of this year. Wetland plans are valid for 3 years, because wetlands do change. So while history, of course, is valuable in how this came to be, We have a site plan that was stamped by Professional Land Surveying, calling this a coastal bank.
No, I understand.
So
that.
that's what we're going
Yeah,
by.
no, I understand that, and maybe the way that we have to work this is with the engineering firm, with the information that's.
They
been
want to
provided.
explore it a little bit more, I think that's a great thing,
Okay, very good.
okay?
So that meeting would be on the 6th of July, because we
That
have one
sounds
more
right.
meeting this month, and then that'd be the 2 for
Yes,
the month of June.
that sounds right.
July 6th, all right with you?
So July 6th for discussion topic, not a hearing.
Yeah, okay.
We don't need a motion on that.
You do not, no?
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I'd just like to observe that there's very little coastline, very little land in the town of Harwich, or probably on Cape Cod. There's a near wetland that has not been affected by human activity in the last couple hundred years. And this place is no different. And we can't make those kinds of distinctions because you don't know where to draw the line. What we have to do is follow the definitions that are in state law that very clearly define what a wetland is and what a coastal bank is. And they don't make any provisions for whether someone built a road near there. A coastal bank is a coastal bank, and there's very clear definitions for those. So I don't know how we would make an exception based on the fact that somebody built a road by that coastal bank.
I understand your question, but I think, my position and the position of my neighbor, who is, my property actually abuts John Sennett's land, okay? Not conservation land. But that's as far as I know, I think. Is that correct, John? So, but my understanding is our land abuts John Sennett's land, not conservation land. And the information that he provided is that there was a roadway, you can see it very clearly, and that's where that bank was created. Okay, so we'll just have to come back to that.
Good.
Okay.
So we'll move this off to July 6th meeting.
Yep, we'll have it for discussion then, and if you want to chat before then.
Very good. Thank you, Amy.
All right, moving on then. Next item we
Thank you.
have is a request.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Request for determination of applicability for 1032 Factory Road, map 66, parcel W2-1.
Good evening. I'm Jim Nickerson. I'm here for John and Martha Larrabee. They want to build a addition off the backside of their house. There's a deck there now. They want to remove the deck and use part of that area for new full foundation. I believe it's 24. It's going to go out 24, which is going to be 12 inches beyond where the original deck was. And they want to take there and put a new deck on that goes out as far. And this is in the, just over the, just under the 100-foot buffer to overgrown cranberry bog.
Thank you. Amy, do you have comments?
Yep, so this, the existing deck is 86 feet away from this old bog. The proposed deck, in addition, would be 84 and a half roughly. Or sorry, the new deck would be 84 and a half. The addition is actually about 97 feet in the wetland. There would be a net increase in structure in the 50 to 100 of 204 square feet, so they are proposing 400 square feet of planting. When I went out and did my site inspection the other day, I met the owner, Marty Larrabee, who actually I can see is on the screen here tonight, and we chatted about where that planting would go. Because as presented, it's kind of along the edge of their very informal Cape Cod lawn area, which would work, but we had some other creative ideas that were a little bit closer to the wetland itself. One is where an old trampoline is, that's about 50 feet from the wetland. That looks like it hasn't been used in quite a long time, and another was where the sandbox was. And when we went to the site today and Marty was there, she said her child really wants to keep the sandbox, which I don't have an issue with, but I would be interested if they're not using the trampoline, that would be a great location for mitigation as it is at the 50. It's probably not gonna, it's probably about half of the 408 square feet.
Yep.
But you could do half of it there and then half along kind of that top of embankment. There's a, by the, and I can sketch it on here.
Is that where the area, excuse me, is that where the area we had marked out for it?
It's near it. So where you had marked is here.
Yep.
The trampoline is over here. And the sandbox is like here.
Okay.
So, I think the amount of mitigation is very small. I don't think we need a new plan. I gave the homeowner a list of appropriate plantings. I saw an email from the owner when I came back in this evening asking about trees. Maybe a tree or two where the trampoline is, but in the area kind of near-ish the sandbox, there's a big canopy already there, so that's where I don't think trees would be appropriate, it'd be more shrubs. But a mix, like red maples might be nice, where actually the trampoline is, or Shadbush serviceberry, and along the top of banking, if you will, the top of slope, it would be more appropriate for sweet pepper bush, arrowwood viburnum, things like that. So I don't know if Marty wants to speak. You can hit *6 if you're on the phone, or just speak if you want to. She might be preoccupied with
Okay.
something.
All right.
But I think about 200 of that square feet is where the trampoline would be.
Yep.
And then the other 200 would be, there's like an area that's almost a little peninsula by the sandbox that sticks out that could be replanted. And I'd happily do that with her.
All right, good. Stan, do you have any questions on this?
So, pretty simple.
Al? No? Jim?
No questions?
John? Nope. Mark? Seems pretty straightforward, I think, so. May we have a motion on this?
Sure. I'll move that we approve the determination of applicability for 1032 Factory Road, map 66, parcel W2, -1, with mitigation at locations approved by the town's conservation agent,
-3.
and a -3 determination.
May we have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
So do you want me to come down and see you or meet you on site for the area?
Whatever you want to do, we'll have this ready by Friday, the
Okay.
permit. So if you want to call the office and set up a schedule with I think the owner should be there too,
Okay,
to go over the planting area.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Next item on the agenda, notice of intent for 47 Saquatucket Bluffs Road for beach access stairs.
Mr. Chairman, they need a little more time to get the revised mitigation planting plan together, so they would like a continuance to June 15th.
6:15, we have a motion to,
Okay, I'll move that we extend the public hearing on the notice of intent for 47 Saquatucket Bluffs Road, parcel, map 9, parcel A1-3, until our meeting of June 15th, 2022.
may I have a second, please?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is notice of intent for 23 Quasit Road for planting and marsh enhancement.
Good evening, Lindsay Strode from Cape Organics, representing Mr. Weaver, who's in the audience this evening. It appears as though in the section of marsh that's to the west, it is slumped. I'm relatively new to the site, but what I understand happened was during some unintended dredging several years ago. That is really just the result of that. Why it's not doing it along the whole area, as you stand on the dock, you can see where the dredge came in, kind of swooped in and made a closer cut to the left-hand or western portion of the deck. What we're proposing to do is to stabilize the seaward edge with a series of fiber rolls consistent with what we've done elsewhere on the Cape. Stabilizing that seaward limit consistent with the Spartina alterniflora, laying it back at an angle of repose that's stable, using some manufactured fill, just a little bit to recover the elevations necessary for both alterniflora and patents to grow in that particular area, and stabilizing that with oak stakes and twine, again, as we've done in the past, and planting it substantially. The area then, a little bit to the southeast, has some erosion that looks like it's kind of an area that's sunk a little bit where the water sits, and then when the tide goes out, it's just a soft area that has lost some material as well. That would be consistent with an upper marsh area, and we would be doing similarly, bringing some manufactured material in, recovering elevation, stabilizing it with a 1,000 or 900 or 1,000 gram coir mat, securing it, planting it. It's all very pretty straightforward, and I think it's the best initial effort to stabilize the area as it exists presently.
Okay. Thank you. Amy, comments?
Sure. Before I ask questions and make comments, can you explain to the commission what you mean by manufactured fill?
So, years ago, we were doing a project on the Herring River, went out and actually took core samples in healthy, active marsh, had the fractional soil analysis done, and come to find out the majority of the material that's in a healthy marsh is about 80% coarse sand. The other material is peat. The other material in that is fines, kind of a silty material. And we've, over the years, been able to manufacture something similar to that. We use coarse sand. We actually just finished one at the end of Herring River, did the same thing. In this case, it was small enough, we just put sand in one, we brought peat in for the other, and we baled it from one truck to the other, made it a nice homogeneous mix, and then after excavating the hard pack and gravel and hardener that was there, laid this in at the right elevation, secured it, and planted alterniflora. So that's the definition of manufactured fill, if you will.
It just, from the way it sounds, it sounds like it's an artificial product, but it's not an artificial product at all. It's just augmented by man, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And the project that he's talking about is the fish house. They did the mitigation planting for that and the marsh restoration, and if you get a chance, it just happened, so you should go check it out. It's doing really well.
Everything is still green, which is
Yes.
helpful.
People haven't moved the rocks too much. But getting back to this project,
Yes.
so I've had the pleasure of going to this property for probably as long as I've been here, for 10 years, to talk to Mr. Weaver about his various projects. So I've had, there's not a year that I haven't been on this property, and most years I'm there a couple times, as this past year. So when I went out there the last, it was over the winter time, and I noted some denuded spots kind of underneath where his tree was. And I kind of wondered, is that because of shading? What's going on? But as we pointed out in the site actually today, there's areas of the marsh that are under other shade by that same tree and aren't impacted. Look great. But when I went out this spring, and I can't remember if it was to look at this or your shed or whatnot, and I noticed he had a very large slump in his marsh, and We talked on the phone, and he said, "Oh, Amy, the tides actually come up higher pretty much than I've also ever seen it." So I think it's a combination that when the association did this dredge, they probably did go too close to his property. You're not supposed to be within 25 feet of a salt marsh. There is a chance that whatever the composition of the sediment is in there, it just wasn't, even if they were 25 feet, who knows about the stability. But I think they were a little close. And a combination of that and the higher tides and the more frequent storm events, I can honestly say I remember when this salt marsh, not a couple years ago, was out to the extent where these fiber rolls are proposed right now. So what they're asking to do is to reclaim that area, an area that's slumped right now between mean high and mean low water, that will continue to do so by adding in these fiber rolls and the fill, the compatible material, and planting, and that would result in an increase of about 1,100 square feet of salt marsh to bring that back to the area. I have a question about the way you're gonna install the rolls. Your cross-section here has them kind of being stapled, if you will, or anchored completely down. And this is really just for my own education, do you drill them down, screw them down, or do you drill into the side of them back into the landform itself?
So what we do is we use the seaward most fiber roll. It's a 20-inch fiber roll, and it's set almost as a, for lack of a better term, a toe support.
Yep.
And then we put the other one behind it, but we drop that down a little bit. So you've got this mass in front. What we have been doing in the past, and you know, we did one probably 20 some odd years ago in Chatham, at the end of Ridgevale, and the oak stakes are still there. Fiber rolls are gone, the marsh is growing, but you can still walk through there and find oak stakes. So that's what we do, is we use the oak stakes on both the seaward side, in the middle, and the top, and then we notch the stakes, we use twine, and then we pound the stakes down to just secure, basically, as Amy said, staple everything in place. The idea being is that hopefully the plant material grows as fast, or if not faster, than the fiber rolls degrade, and we basically just traded spaces.
So the mix of species that Lindsay has proposed, which exist on site, Spartina alterniflora, Peyton's, marsh elder, spike grass, those all naturally exist in the marsh adjacent here and should do very well here. This will just give it a bit of a more stable base to regrow. The marsh here is slightly, if you look at the other side of the dock, on the south side of the dock, it's a little bit flatter, it's a tiny bit, 6 inches lower in elevation. But where the slumping is occurring, it's just a tiny bit higher in elevation. So I would recommend approval of the project. Salt marsh is probably the most protected wetland that we have, and to be able to recreate it is a good thing, and with monitoring. And you had in your monitoring, in your report anyways, that in season, in the growing season, you're gonna be out there twice a month checking it anyways. In the dormant season, once a month, and you're gonna be doing that at least for 3 years, so we would mirror that in our order of conditions if this gets approved.
And after any significant weather event. So we want to stay on top of it. We get a big storm, or we get cold temperatures, something happens to the project, we want to be there to manage and maintain it through its lifespan. The other thing too, elevation, as you probably know, is just specifically in salt marsh is critical, as I've explained in other projects. We go out into healthy marsh and we use those benchmark elevations at the limits of where that plant material exists. We get the seaward limit, the upward limit of one species, and then again we get the seaward limit and the upward limit of the next species. We make those marks on site, taken from existing healthy marsh, and replicate those elevations as closely as possible.
Stan, do you have any
I
questions?
don't have any additional questions.
Wayne?
I don't either.
Jim?
No questions.
John?
So, what's the risk that, I mean, seaward of where you're working, there's still this overdredge, or whatever you want to call it. So once, assuming everything goes as you plan, and the marsh gets established, and the fiber rolls stay in place, eventually they're gonna disintegrate. What's to stop the thing from slumping back into the hole that somebody dug accidentally by mistake?
That's a really good question. I don't have an exact answer for that, but what I will say is, hopefully, with all the siltation that occurs in that little finger of Oyster Creek, we will get some accretion, we'll get some elevation rise. There are still areas outside of this that are eroding, not at this rate. Hopefully, that deposition will recover some of that material that was taken away. And I think that area is not supposed to be dredged, or was not.
That is not in the, I don't believe, in the current dredge permit for Oyster Creek.
So hopefully, the idea would be is to let that naturally silt in and recover elevation. At the same time, we will be there looking at it, keeping an eye on it. If we need to replace a fiber roll, if we need to go back down, maybe go a little bit further, that obviously would be, again, before you folks. But through monitoring and maintenance, I think that's the other thing that's really important on projects in dynamic areas like this, is just a regular maintenance protocol. Very often, over the years, in my years of seeing this, somebody will put a project like this out, and they'll get their certificate of compliance, and they're done. I very rarely do that. Part of all of my contracts are ongoing maintenance, 3 to 5 years minimum, so that we can stay on top of things. I'm not in the business of building things that won't work. There are situations where fiber rolls are not appropriate, and I've refused in the past to put them in. But I think this is a reasonable alternative to anything else at this point, at this location.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good fix for this situation, and thanks for your presentation. Very clear. A couple questions for Amy, not really related to you, I don't think, but just going back to when this dredging occurred. Do you know what year it was?
I don't exactly. It wasn't the most recent dredge. It was,
It was about 2011, I believe.
Okay.
yeah.
And as a footnote, I was not informed. I was really ticked. I mean, they came in.
You need to go to the mic if
They
you're going to
was-
speak. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be that person, but
Well, 2011, and I had originally said, I don't want anything to come into that little finger, and they came in. And that's what created this whole mishmash of going forward of my erosion. So I appreciate the committee listening to what we're trying to do. And I also think there was something over on one of the sides, right? We want to do some more plantings.
yes, and
That was
and
part of the
Lindsay was
meeting.
talking, that's one of the areas that's kind of denuded, that is encompassed in your, where
Okay.
you're gonna be allowed to do,
Yeah.
to kind of fill that in.
Okay.
All right,
That's it?
thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So I remember when it was permitted, and I imagine they have the certificate of compliance for this. It's already been released.
They have a newer dredge permit, so the
Yeah.
other one, I don't have it in front of me, so I believe it either has a cert or it's expired, but they have a new dredge permit that does not impact this area.
Right. Okay, we should just be diligent to condition, well, they have a permit, so just, I guess, watch what they do, because to me, looking at Google Earth images, it's pretty clear that they cut in sharply, and there probably should have been some response to that. And so, but this project, I think, is the right solution for this situation.
Okay, good. Mark?
No remarks, thank you.
Okay, good. One question for you. There's this small area down here that you're showing remediation or replanting. Where does that fit on the map itself? It looks like a different configuration, just one set of core rolls. And
don't go by the shape, that's typical, the last project that, Mr. Burgess also had, that was meant to be an example. Maybe we can ask him to make a note that this does not reflect something on the site. This is just an example of what the planting and the twine and the rules would look like, as far, from what I understand. Is that
Mark-
correct, Lindsay?
I
Mark
believe
did
so.
this.
It's a rendering,
Mark Burgess, yeah.
yeah.
I see, okay. And one other comment, with all the dredging and the bank collapsing in and all, have you checked the depth around the float? Is it more or less than what it should be?
That, I have not. That would
Be a question for Mark, which I can ask him, or Mr.
Right.
Weaver can ask him,
Yeah,
the
'cause I
depth
think we
around
need
the,
to just make
existing
sure if
depth
there's-
around float.
Been a significant change in the depth. Hopefully, it's all for the positive as far as being more than the 2.5 feet we would look for.
You have a decent amount of depth where your boat is, so I think it's well over 2.5.
Okay, all right, good. I have no other questions then on that, so. That
Oh,
being,
so I'm sorry, one
Yeah.
thing, I would recommend, and I'll put it in the order, is I would like to see a benchmark or two driven here, so we can monitor elevations over time a little
Certainly.
bit more accurately.
easy to do. Happy to do that.
How about time of year for work?
There's not really, DMF didn't have any comments on this one. I mean, you would do it during an appropriate planting season for the majority of these marsh plantings. So,
Does the fall fit in? Because I would think fall would be less impactful to aquatic life than the spring.
So it would be incumbent on two things. One, availability. We're rather tight, but securing this would be ideal to do anytime in the late summer, early fall. And then the container plants, anything larger can go in the fall. The herbaceous material would come through in plugs, 2-inch plugs. I would want to do those like early spring, March, April.
but you could do the rolls and the matting
Oh, yeah,
summer, fall this year.
correct.
Yeah,
So you-
we can condition that then to have the mats installed after a certain date perhaps. I'm mostly concerned about the spring. And
So
that
if we
would
say
be-
after July 1,
Yeah, that's fine. April, May is a time there's a lot going on, a wide range of species, so, yeah, even June 15th, July 1,
I'm just gonna say July 1 to keep it easy to,
that's fine.
So that's, for my clarification, that's, I can work after July 1st, is that, okay.
to put in the rolls,
Right.
and then the
In water
planting
work.
would take place
Could
in the
happen
spring.
anytime.
And the, okay, vegetate, because we're out of, all of those environments that would, impact species, as you had mentioned. Okay.
are you when are you looking to do this?
Again, I'm guessing right now, probably late summer.
Okay, so the
And then-
July 1's not gonna be a big.
Oh, no. There's, not much is going on before.
You don't need to be there tomorrow, okay. All right,
Any comments from people on the phone? Hearing none, can we have a motion on this, please?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve the notice of intent for 23 Wacquasit Road, map 5, parcel K1-42, subject to the mats being installed after July 1st.
Second,
Second.
discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is notice of intent for 91 Punkhorn Road, map 100, parcel A5.
Good evening, Lynn Hamlin.
Good evening.
I think I just walked through a wall of pollen on my way here. I'll try not to, it's like I've been quiet all night, now I'm gonna cough at you. This application is to raise and rebuild an existing single-family dwelling with a deck. I write a pretty extensive narrative, so I'm not gonna hold you up. I'm going to just hit the highlights. The resource areas on the property are BVW to the east and Seymour Pond to the north. Right now, the house and the deck occur within the 50-foot buffer zone. The new construction will push the structure back, I am so sorry, approximately 10 feet to remove all the construction out of the 50-foot buffer zone. The foundation will be out of your 60-foot buffer zone, and just the post-supported deck will be within the 50 to 60-foot setback. There's a net reduction of construction overall in both I consider it almost a 60-foot buffer zone in this town. So there's a net reduction of 156 square feet in your 60-foot buffer zone and 241 square feet in your 60 to 100-foot buffer zone. So there's an overall net reduction. And there's an increase in the setback from Seymour Pond. This is a Patriot Builders project. I like working with Patriot Builders. They do a nice job, and they're very tuned into the Conservation Commission concerns, and I don't ever have a problem with them adhering to an order of conditions. And Chris Childs actually talked to Amy before I got involved, and to talk to her about a potential design, and sought her guidance before they went ahead. We still need a variance, even though it's an improvement over existing conditions for construction within the 60-foot buffer zone. And we are requesting that and highlighting the positive components of the project, that we're locating it further away, we're reducing the footprint overall. The septic system, we're not proposing any upgrade to the septic system, as it will remain a 3-bedroom dwelling. The septic system is way up on the hill. It has a pump. It's way beyond conservation jurisdiction. Similarly, the driveway is outside of your jurisdiction. The front of the house is beyond 100 feet from both the BVW and Seymour Pond. We're proposing, well, the front of I call it the front, the water side of the house is a beach. I went there and thought how much fun that would be to raise kids there. You could just let the kids and the dogs go, and all the neighbors would hopefully watch them, and it looked idyllic. But they're proposing no change. It's still be maintained as sand. It's one of the few places that are maintained like this. I proposed just the conservation mix on the sides of the house. If you were out there, it's your classic lawn is a stretch. It's green pond things growing in sand. And in the front, I can't imagine they're going to be doing anything formal there. And we can't really push it any further away from the pond because they're accommodating a driveway. And if you were out there, it's a little residential community, and you don't want to be on top of the road that accesses the 2 properties or 3 properties beyond this one. So they really did try to do a good job taking all their concerns into play and maintaining the recommendations as supplied by Amy before they even started. So I will try not to hold you up and answer questions.
Good, thank you. Amy?
They did approach me a long time ago, and I said, if you can get smaller, if you can get farther from the pond, even better. And they did that. It is a constrained site, as Lynn had stated, because of kind of a joint driveway that goes past this property into other ones. Once you, on the other side of that driveway, you have a new shed, which is outside the 100-foot buffer, but then you have this 15-foot slope that goes almost straight up, and that's where their leach field is, way up there. So they've left themselves space, as you saw today. So picture where we were parking today. Picture that whole structure being moved another 10 feet or so landward, and you still have room for 2 cars, but that's about it. So the existing house is about 41 feet from the wetland, as proposed to 51. The new building will be smaller, as Lynn stated, less in each of the respective buffer zones. As such, no mitigation is proposed. Lynn, I apologize. I sent you an email at the 11th hour, hoping you might get it. It has nothing to do with the construction of the house, just observations we made while on site today. So the sandy beach area, it looks like they had been bringing in beach sand, not like bank sand. The sand that was there has a little bit of like seashell type fragments in it, and it was very, very fine beach sand. So if they shouldn't be using that, and if they want to do sand nourishment at all, sometimes different beaches like to do a top dressing. It really should come in front of us in the future, and it had to be compatible material, not what you'd find on Nantucket Sound, because this is a great pond. So I would recommend the condition on that. And then a question I had as I was driving here today, of course, thinking about work, is that I'm curious, are you going to be using Punkhorn Road for access for building?
I guess so.
So just something
Unless
to
you
be aware,
helicopter it
just
in.
something to be aware of, because it's not like you could barge it over. There's not really like a
Right.
public ramp there. Brad knows this, but a portion of the Herring River goes underneath that road, and it's very small at that point. But it's in a culvert, under a culvert that's in pretty bad shape, owned by Don Bates, a private property owner, who is aware of it and says it's okay, but if you're going to be bringing heavy machinery, I mean, that road's terrible anyways, but that's a really sensitive part of that road is where the culvert is, and I just wouldn't, it's a herring run, we wouldn't want to see it collapse,
I
so.
think Chris is listening. 'Cause
So I
texted
wanted to
him.
bring it up. It has nothing to do with this particular, but I think you should know about it.
Definitely. Yeah. Yes, I will, I'm sure Chris Childs is listening.
So,
One clarification is the deck setbacks on the posts go from 41 to 51. The foundation
Right.
goes from 53 to 63.
right.
So it's a little further.
So while they're still needing a variance, I think they're overall improving a structure that predated the regulations by getting it farther away and making it smaller. And I recommend approval.
Thank you. Dan, do you have any questions? Wayne?
No.
Alan?
No.
Jim?
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. The variance you're requesting is for construction within the 60-foot setback?
Yes,
Okay, thank
That's
you.
under our regs, not a bylaw.
Yeah.
right. Well, I need a variance, right?
Technically.
If I don't need one, I withdraw.
I was just requesting a clarification, that's all.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
you can train an old dog. Takes a few, but.
John, questions?
No, I have nothing, thank you.
Brett?
Just gonna follow up on that question, because it seems to me that it wouldn't really require a variance because it's an existing structure and it's being reconstructed, so would it really need a variance for this?
I would say because you're going to new, it is a new project, it is, and the way your regulation reads, it's that no new structures. So this is, it's not a repair, I don't know, it's the way you read the language, it could be either or. I don't think it hurts to grant them one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wouldn't call it that because it is an existing structure that's pulling back a little bit, where the intent of that was to prevent encroachment for like new construction. So,
Lynn was just being careful.
yeah, but either way, I don't think it really matters that much because I think you're doing all you can with this footprint.
Or whatever, if you don't want to, I withdraw my variance request if you like.
I don't like giving variances, but
You
you probably gathered that over the years. But in this case, I don't know if it matters because you are truly reducing the footprint, you're pulling back, so.
Mark?
I don't want to split hairs with you, but I'm gonna. It's a replacement of a structure no matter how you cut it. And, I mean, as I see it, the variance is a necessary item, and I believe it's absolutely to the best interest of everything there to grant it, and I do support it. But I do see it requiring a variance.
Yeah, I just disagree, having been involved in the development of that 60-foot piece. It was really for new structures. I mean, for example, they could rebuild an existing footprint.
I don't.
They could just come in and say, we're gonna rebuild where we are,
Right.
and that's just the way it would go. And so, but I don't think in this case it really matters that much, because you're pulling back, you're reducing your square footage. So it's almost semantics.
Yeah, I don't have it with me. I usually grab my book, but I didn't.
Yeah, so
I'd go one step further too, is the whole reason for the 60-foot setback was to not force activity into the 50. That 50 is all activity. I mean, that's what it is. So, you know, you're not really protecting anything by having it outside the 60.
Right.
So I'm not troubled by this at all. So any other comments from the audience, questions? All right, sounds like we're ready for a motion.
Okay, I'd like to move that we approve the notice of intent for 91 Punkhorn Road, map 100, parcel A5, and that we also approve a variance for construction within the 60-foot buffer zone.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're on to orders of conditions.
Yep.
First one is for Salt River Lane.
This was for a deck expansion, gravel walkway and planting. They came back to you last meeting. I had worked with the owner on revising species and the exact location of plantings. So if you have any questions or comments, let me know. It's a very basic special condition set. It's a small project.
Any comments, questions, changes? It's very straightforward on this one. Can we have a motion?
Sure. I'll move that we approve the order of conditions for 4 Salt River Lane, map 4, parcel A1-B2.
We have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next one is order of conditions for 41 Nons Road.
So the commission approved this project for a pier ramp float and dredging at their last meeting. Since then, the applicant's representative has submitted a revised planting plan showing additional planting of the marsh area. I think it meets your mitigation requirements. They are mitigating / restoring the slope. They're adding, getting rid of some lawn and adding native plantings, and they're adding to and enhancing the marsh. I had a change from my draft order that I had originally given you, and it was to include an item 21, special condition 21, and this was brought to my attention today by the applicant and the applicant's neighbor, the representative from the association, that at the last meeting, we had talked about agreeing to do additional planting on the abutting property of 49 Nons Road with permission of that owner. So with this project on 41, I would argue does not need to do that mitigation. They meet their mitigation requirement without it. But in good faith effort, and also it benefits both properties to plant that area with a little bit of extra planting, so you don't have a gap in the vegetation. But I added the condition that the applicant shall apply for an administrative review permit with the Conservation Department to do additional planting agreed upon at the May 19th, 2022 hearing on the neighboring property of 49 Nons Road with permission of that owner. I sent that to both parties, and they have requested, there was that be done within 3 months of the issuance of this order. And that it shall include a revised site plan stamped by an appropriate registered professional and have prior approval. I think a sketch plan, which is similar to, which, was the plan that was the mitigation plan that was given to you. I think a similar sketch plan would be, would suffice for that. I don't think you need, like a PE or a PLS to necessarily sign and stamp that. And then I do need to add in the resource areas on page 1, I need to add coastal beach to that. That was my mistake. And there was a couple other small little wording changes which didn't change substance to anything. Do you have any questions?
The $2,000 a year for shellfish mitigation, is that the right number, Amy? I thought it was more than that.
2,000 per year for 3 years.
It is.
It is, it hasn't changed.
Okay.
We haven't accounted for inflation though, so getting a bargain.
Yeah, tell the shellfish
Sorry,
that.
I know, it's probably not funny because it seems like a lot, but we actually, back in a couple years ago, when we figured it out, it actually was a slight deal for the owners and because we get it our local, at our town cost, and we just rounded down a little bit. So I can only imagine now that everything else has gone up, the price of shellfish probably has too.
Something might want to just check with Heinz on it.
Yeah, we should probably look at
That's-
that again, but yes.
But
But
for
that's
this
what
one-
we typically require.
Yeah, all right, good. Any comments, changes on this? Concerns? Brad, you still looking?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Can we have a motion on this then, please?
Sure. I'll move that.
Oh, wait a
we-
minute, I'm sorry. I apologize. You're gonna wanna move to close the hearing as well
Okay,
and issue the order of conditions.
okay. As part of the motion.
Yes.
Now, you're also going to be waiting for the revised, or for the additional mitigation plan, right?
I'm not gonna be waiting.
You
You're
have that?
voting, nope, we have the revised mitigation plan, the one that's to be done on the neighboring property will, I mean, if there's discussion about this, we need to know now, something provided within the next 3 months. They're amenable, so.
All right, good. So we can have a motion on this then, please.
Okay. I'll move that we close the public hearing on 41 Nones Road, map 5, parcel W1-19, and that we approve the order of conditions on that piece of property, subject to the addition of comments made at the meeting today.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
When we do orders of conditions, we need to get into the habit of making a motion to close the hearing and issue the order.
Right.
Okay.
I haven't been reminding you guys, so.
Why don't you put that on the agenda?
Okay, I will. I'll put it in my recommendations next time.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you. Next item is a order of conditions for 7 Sketchaconet Way.
This was pier, ramp, float, and work on the bank. I'm gonna be very interested to, I think we all are, to see how this project goes more, with the bank work. This is the first one that we've authorized, changing of the grade of the bank and replanting, so it'll be really
To see if it works.
interesting to see how it works. And I think we need to, because we're gonna be asked these questions a lot more frequently. So I think this is a good project to try it out.
To do similar kinds of projects?
Well, they did say they had projects that succeeded, not so,
Not in Harwich. This is a Harwich first.
I know.
It'll be interesting.
Well, what I meant was hopefully succeed.
Hopefully it'll succeed, yeah.
This is too shallow.
Really?
The meander's so tight here.
There must be a channel there somewhere.
It's right here.
I see just a little further north, it's.
Right.
Okay.
But that's a hard mess to deal.
Yeah.
So any comments on the order of conditions for 7 Sketchaconnet Way?
I should included Coastal Beach on this one too.
And this is another one, close the hearing as well?
This is another close an issue.
Hearing no changes, can we have a motion, please?
Sure. I'll move that we close the public hearing and issue the order of conditions on 7 Sketchaconnet Way, map 4, parcel C1-4.
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, order of conditions for Town of Harwich and Mass Division of Marine Fisheries to add material to the artificial reef.
This is a mirror of the last permit for this. The language really hasn't changed, the work hasn't changed, protocols haven't changed. The only thing that's changed is the amount that we're putting down, but we are still under our 1 acre size 1 acre coverage out of 10 acre size of the reef. So it will be close to, if we put what we're proposing to put out there, we'll be at about 80 to 85% capacity at this. And just a little update, it is looking like with scheduling and everything else and time of year restrictions, that we're looking at the end of summer and not the beginning of summer for this, so, for deployment, but this year.
So, Amy, I have a question for you. Under the general conditions, you've not changed these, it looks like. And we have things in there like number 7, talking about the construction site being stable condition and erosion and sediment control measures being in place and all that kind of, that's not applicable to this, really.
Those are general, it's not applicable to this one, I could strike it, or it's really meant to be general for all projects, but I can strike those.
What you said that mirrors the one that.
It did, so, right, so the old one had that in it too.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean anything for this project.
I agree with you, but it's just, I don't
We can
like
take it out.
having it in there, really.
I didn't,
I'm s-
honestly, I didn't look at the generals, I looked at the specials.
Yeah, I know.
So I could take number 7's general out,
7, 8, and 10 at least, I
7, 8,
think.
and 10.
And number 4 talks about having the right to enter and inspect the premises.
Well, I wanna go diving.
Brad would probably.
Maybe change premises to something else then.
The area?
Yeah.
Inspect the project. Okay,
Yeah, I don't have any other comments on the special conditions at all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
just a question, what are they dumping out there?
granite mostly. and
yep,
On what?
they've been, all the granite, for all the culvert replacement projects that the state has granted permits for and a lot of, grants for the removal for culvert, to restore waterways, they've been saving all the granite. And it is currently sitting on the docks in New Bedford.
They got about an acre of it.
It's an acre, about They haven't decided if it's 50/50 to Yarmouth and Harwich Reef or 40/60, 60 to Yarmouth, 40 to Harwich, but
Actually pretty cool.
what's nice is, the last part was, I mean, it was the old high school, which was really cool, but a lot of that was concrete, which degrades in salt water in not too long of a time. It's still doing really well out there, but granite won't.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we have a motion then for the order of conditions under discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question first. Are we also closing a public hearing on this?
Yes.
I think it was a yeah for me.
Yeah, okay, then I will move that we close the public hearing and issue the order of conditions to the town of Harwich and the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries, coastal waters of Nantucket Sound, subject to the revisions of the general conditions as discussed at this meeting.
Good, thank you, Jim. A second, please.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
We'll let you know when it's gonna happen, and we usually try to find enough room on boats for people to come and see it if you're interested.
That's cool.
Okay.
That sounds
Hopefully not as choppy and cold of a day as the last time we went.
Next item on the agenda are requests for an extension for 0 and 35 Walter Road. They're
This-
requesting a 1-year extension.
Yeah, this was a tear down and rebuild of a home. The home is done. The plantings have been in for a year, but they want another, they've asked for an extension for another year to make sure.
Okay.
So it's really just for it's just for the plantings.
Okay, good. Do we have a motion on this?
Sure. I'll move that we approve the request for an extension for the property located at 0 and 35 Walter Road, map 16, parcel W1 and T10, orders of conditions SE 32-2327.
And we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And the next item is a request for a certificate of compliance for 15 Dome Road.
I'm recommending a certificate of compliance for 15 Doan. They removed and replaced an existing dwelling.
She's on it. She is.
Visited the site and
All
found
meeting
found it to be in compliance. I recommend the ongoing condition of no fertilizer in the 100-foot buffer and replanting of the mitigation plants if they die. They all looked good except one, when I was there, and the owner said he would replace it, and he's been pretty good to work with. So I would recommend a cert of compliance for 15 Doan.
Okay. Any comments, questions? You have a motion, please?
Sure. I'll move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 15 Doan Road, map 13, parcel E3-1, order of conditions SE 32-2388.
You have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the last item on the agenda, request for certificate of compliance for 177 Forest Street.
I wish Mr. Saffron was here. Because I'm recommending a certificate of compliance for him. It's been a very long time coming. So, and I think he would agree with that. So he has moved all the debris piles and graded it appropriately. In the 100-foot buffer, he has seeded the bare areas with a native seed, and he's put the roof runoff into gutters, downspouts, and dry wells. So he is in compliance, and I will recommend a certificate of compliance for 177 Forest Street.
Any questions or discussion on this? Other than a round of applause, perhaps?
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Can we have a motion, please?
Sure. I'll move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 177 Forest Street, map 31, parcel C2, Order of Conditions SE 32-2247.
And a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
We did not get to minutes, sorry, so there were none. Quick announcement, we will not be having a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, it's coming on Monday with the tech. I've been given instructions by administration on moving forward with how to finalize the draft. I think the selectmen they wanna have that public meeting, but they don't wanna have it when things are in draft form. They want it when it's ready to go. So I wanna continue working with our council, tech and tech's council, and keeping the current lessee in the loop, which I'm trying to do, moving forward. So hopeful for a meeting in June, but we'll let you, July, but we'll, later June, early July, we'll let you know. And that is, I think that's all I got.
Wow.
Anybody else have any announcements, questions, comments?
I have a question regarding the property on Main Street. What will be the status of the current lessee going forward? Obviously he's involved in this, but, I mean, is he to be directed to cease and desist, or how does this take place?
The commission hasn't just made the definite decision, because we haven't been given a product to vote on for where to go with this property next. So the commission, we can see where we're at. I mean, it could be, if we pursue and eventually, sign this intermunicipal agreement with the tech, that could be a condition between the tech and the current lessee about a time frame for removing things and getting things in order. The commission or the Board of Selectmen could authorize another 1-year extension to give him time to do that. I will tell you that the tech school wants to have this done and signed by September at the very latest, because they need to be going to like Department of Ed and all these other things for future things. They want to start there soon, but I asked the same question because I don't want the selectmen or anybody else to think the commission's dragging its feet on making a decision here. We need that final IMA in order to make a decision. Is that what you want to go with? Do you want to release the property, or do you want to do something different with it, which would still have to be conservation and agriculture, because that's how the property was acquired.
Right, well, my concern is being fair to everybody concerned, because,
I get it, yeah.
Clearly there's an opportunity for discrepancy there.
Hopefully there could be an agreement between the town, the tech, and the current lessee for an adequate time frame to.
Didn't he already have an extra year to do that? Well, clean it up. That simple.
If the town was not to enter into an IMA with the tech, that current lessee, I think, would be interested in reapplying to lease it again. But that's was a while ago that I was told that. I don't know if that's current sentiment, but I understand, because we want to give everybody due.
So it sounds like September is like the critical date here, right?
Yeah, I'm shooting for July. I don't want to wait till September. I'm gonna try to push councils, and there's only so much I can do because it's really not down to me. But to get this document finalized for you soon.
If the IMA is approved, then I'm assuming that the current lessee has expressed his willingness to terminate his lease in lieu of, in favor of that.
That I don't know, and I'll probably call the current lessee to try to have a conversation. I've made him aware of all of our meetings that we've had where we've talked about the IMA and invited him. But I think I haven't talked to him in months, so I'd like to know how he stands on things too. So.
Are there specific points or issues that are complicating the parties coming to agreement? Or is it somebody just needing to turn the crank?
I think
Like a
the
lawyer
latter.
having to complete a document, or
I think just need somebody to push it a little more. And I'll help that.
Don't we have to vote on that, though? We haven't really voted on it, because all we had was a hearing from them.
Yeah, so.
Saying that they're conceptual and they're planning of it, but we haven't voted as a body of
Right.
going that direction.
So that was gonna be the purpose of the joint hearing with the Board of Selectmen, is for the Concom and the Board of Selectmen as independent bodies, but at the same meeting, so we're all on the same page to take a vote. So that's what that upcoming meeting is going to be for. But you can't, I feel like you can't make
You
an
can't make a
educated-
vote if you don't have a,
No, that's Sue Sangelo.
you can't have a meeting, you can't vote on something you don't know what you're voting on.
Exactly.
So we're just delaying again.
Unless you're U.S. Congress.
So I have specific things that I'd like to see added, to be a little bit more concrete in the lease language, because I feel like it's a little too broad. And I know Jim had some legal language he wanted to add and
I'll try to get-
suggest to our council.
Right, I'll try to get that to you next week.
So I've reached out already today after because I met this afternoon with administration, and they said the Board of Selectmen don't want to meet on Monday because we don't feel like we're ready yet to have that productive joint meeting. So I already contacted the superintendent and said, can we talk before the end of this week and get minds together?
Well, my bigger concern is going into a meeting with the Board of Selectmen and not being certain that we are ready to attend that meeting. I mean, if there are any open questions that members of the commission have, or any issues that haven't been expressed, then we gotta get them on the table before
Yes, I
then.
need to know them.
Well, I have a question, or idea. Maybe the parcel's too big for one entity. Maybe we can divide that parcel up into different options. The tech school could have maybe 5 to 10 acres. Another person, or the current leasee, can lease something else, or another person can lease it. I mean, that could be, we could parcel that out into 10-acre chunks and utilize it that way. That might be a better option going forward. Tech still has something, the public entity that wants to chime in and try to lease, there may be somebody that wants to farm something and needs that open space and needs that land.
That's a big question to put on the table now.
yeah.
Well, how is it now? What do you mean by now?
Because the tech has already been moving forward with their plans based on the
For the whole
assumption that
thing,
they're gonna have 10 acres of
Understood.
property to work with.
30.
Understood, but I mean,
30 acres.
if we're still doing a lot, there's still a lot, I mean, we haven't, that's their idea. There might be somebody else that might come forward and say,
We haven't
"Yeah,
dissuaded them of that either.
No,
I
right,
mean,
I
all the
understand.
meetings we've had with them, we've assumed that they would have the 10 acres, and we haven't disavowed that in any form or fashion either.
Yeah, but Alan's point earlier is valid. We haven't seen a plan.
we haven't
We've seen a very
A
rough
proposal.
conceptual.
Yeah.
So we haven't had a plan to review or.
the vote on." I mean, we don't have anything concrete.
Mm-hmm.
It's still up in the air. And that's, I'm just saying as a person in the town, there may be other people that wanna lease that property. We're kinda like being driven to go this direction, but we don't know if that's the right direction.
Well, haven't we had multiple hearings and people haven't come forward? I mean, we've been at this for years, right? And
Not that parcel. Not this, not to interrupt you, but not that
we
parcel.
have had, how many hearings have we had?
Maybe two.
Two hearings, and we haven't had any concrete proposals come forward. It's been a couple of years. And if we decide now, we're gonna put the brakes on this process and look for other options, I think we're gonna be in trouble. I think it's gonna be very problematic.
Well, if I may say that the leasee has brought this to our attention, not anybody else, because it's been extended, his lease has been extended for his personal whatever needs. Nobody else has known that this is on the table for a lease.
This isn't, so I only brought it up to let you know that this is not gonna be discussed at Monday, because in case you were planning. If we wanna put this topic on discussion for a broader discussion amongst the commission at the next meeting, we can, but I don't have as an agenda item, so I don't wanna get too far into this tonight.
Yes.
'Cause it's not legal.
I agree, and to your point, Alan, I mean, there've been even couple of newspaper articles about this in the Chronicle. So it's been publicized fairly well, I think. Sam wants to.
A couple of things though, because you know, when all this started, Leo, the lessee, came out and he had all of these options where he might be like a third party and all this. I've never heard anything more about whether he's fitting in or not, or who's managing the property, you know, which the school talked about a little bit, because again, there's so many open questions that they have too. They're not sure either. Just a broad, proposal that they have to work out, you know, work out the details, so it's really difficult to really say where some of this is going. And then the other thing I heard last time that he talked, that he's ignoring, or they're saying they, from what I heard anyways, there was no use for the cranberry bog part of that property in their plan.
I didn't get that.
That's what I heard. They weren't focusing on it, from what I remember him saying. They were using the rest of the property for their other parts of the program. If I were,
Yeah, I'd say we'd have to, I mean, I really don't think we should have a discussion about this when it's not an agenda item. I'm sorry, I really only meant to say that we're not meeting on Monday.
I just wanted to raise the issue that, you know, we.
Yeah.
the question
gotta
was,
put this
do we
forward.
have any
Understand.
questions?
Yeah,
So it's
pretty
like-
quickly
No,
then,
you're fine.
Amy, so maybe
Huh?
the next meeting we can have this on the agenda.
Sure, we can put it on.
And should we ask the lessee if he would like to come?
Let me talk to him. I mean, it's gonna be a discussion item, the public is welcome to attend.
Oh, I understand, but
Yeah.
a lot of these questions are only answerable by the lessee.
Yeah, and if you wanted the superintendent to come too, that's fine.
I think a written proposal is what we need, you know? And so the lessee's got ideas, that's great, but I think really we'd like to review something concrete.
That's, yeah,
Current
the
lessee, not the
final-
proposed lessee.
agreement.
No, the proposed, the current. the
Yeah,
current
so
lessee.
both of them.
Yeah,
because
we know what's going on, you know, it's, and we've had a PowerPoint, that's all we had.
meeting and then
Yeah.
the power one.
Right. I'll put it on the next.
Seems to me what the school needs to do is solidify that property before they can go to their next step, so.
Yeah, they don't wanna put too much effort in. I do know this. I don't think they wanna put a whole lot of effort in until they know they have it.
Understandable.
So the terms of the IMA, if they're better fleshed out, hopefully would give people a little bit more clarity and comfort.
Mhm.
All right?
Okay, all right. So think of your questions for the next meeting. And let's get them all on the table then.
Yes, please send them to me. I'm happy to forward them. And, plovers hatched today.
Yay, terrific.
So if you wanna go see little fluff balls,
Which ones?
Red River.
Red- I
Bank Street will be in a few days.
have never been able to catch sight of the nest there. I don't,
Oh, they're real well hidden. They were real well hidden this year.
That's what they do.
yeah.
Even more so this year. They were like in the dunes, not on the edge. Those little fluff balls running around today though.
Anything else we need to discuss?
Nothing pressing.
Okay. Can we have a motion to
I
adjourn?
move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We
All
are
right.
adjourned. Thank you.
Please give me your